Hello and welcome back to another Doctor Who Big Finish video. In today's Doctor Who Big Finish video I'll be taking a look at this. He Kills Me Not, the first instalment of the 8th Doctor trilogy of stories, part of the Time Lord Victorious sort of event. Now this is the second release Big Finish have done, part of the Time Lord Victorious banner, the first being the Master short trip releases, which I will be reviewing very soon. So yeah, this is the first instalment of the 8th Doctor's involvement within the Time Lord Victorious. Obviously we do have the multi-Doctor story of Echoes of Extinction with the 10th Doctor, end of November and December, which is very exciting, but this is the first part of the 8th Doctor's journey into the Time Lord Victorious. So without further ado, let's look how this release is presented, then we'll go on to my thoughts on the actual story itself. So taking a look at the presentation for He Kills Me Not, so we've got this great sort of debris background of the desert planet, we've got a nice space cosmos background, the TARDIS, the 8th Doctor, and of course Brian the Ood there. Taking a look at the side of the release and the back of the release. If you want to know more about the story, then do feel free to pause. And the total running time for this story being 50 minutes. So taking a look at the leaflet now, so if we open it up, we have production credits for this release, and we have a nice image of the 8th Doctor there, this nice sort of fiery cosmos background, and the back of the booklet there. So I'm covering up somebody's name in there, so I don't give a spoiler away, but that is the back of the release there, and the disc art for this release. He Kills Me Not by Carrie Thompson. Now this is the first story I've experienced by Carrie Thompson, because with this sort of set of 8th Doctor trilogy stories, they're all done by new writers, which I think's incredibly exciting to get new blood into Big Finish and to see what these writers can bring to the table. So what did I think of this story? So this is the 8th Doctor's introduction to the Time Lord Victorious, but in actual fact it's actually the 8th Doctor's second story to feature within the Time Lord Victorious, as the first chronological event for the 8th Doctor in Time Lord Victorious, I believe, is Echoes of Destruction or Echoes of Extinction. It's one of those titles. But this is the first story in the 8th Doctor solo trilogy. So was this a good start to this epic story? Well, yes, this story is a good old-fashioned run-around, with this story very much feeling like a spaghetti western, and I have to say that it is a very solid start, laying down the foundations for future stories. So the actual story itself. So the story itself starts very action-packed with a fantastic score to accompany it, with Brian the Ood pursuing Sophie and Felicity, as Brian has a mission to kill Sophie and take Felicity back to her father. So I won't spoil why Felicity has to go back to her home world and why Brian the Ood wants to kill Sophie. So we have a great moment and a great sort of standoff between Felicity holding Brian off, giving Sophie time to escape, leading to a really great confrontation between those two characters, really showcasing Brian as a character with his sort of manipulative nature, with the Doctor offering to help them with medical assistance. So we have some excellent world building to this story with the planet Fana, where the Doctor remembers this ocean planet with a statue, which is very significant to the story, which I won't go into detail, but Fana is now a desert world, this sort of hospitable planet with two suns, so it's no longer this sort of ocean paradise world what the Doctor describes. It's very much a desolate, run-down world, with the planet's surface being sort of scattered with debris. This causes the Doctor to be quite concerned, as he's never heard of the planet Sophie and Felicity are from. So something has changed planets and altered the universe. So the world building continues as we meet the settlers on this planet, with it very much feeling, this is where it sort of feels very much like a western, with it sort of being all set around this sort of cantina, with us meeting the sheriff character and sort of the cantina owner and this sort of medical officer who sort of helps Brian and Felicity with their injuries. There's great animosity between the sheriff character and the medical character, because the medical character has sort of wants to redeem himself and has sort of redemption. So there's a nice little character journey for that character. Whether he does get his redemption, I'll let you decide whether he does that. And this is when sort of the tides start to change for Brian the Ood, because he's sort of been this sort of sweet, innocent character, hiding behind sort of a facade. So as soon as the town folk get wind of sort of Brian's plan, it's very much an operation to save Sophie and Felicity, to stop Sophie being killed and get Felicity back from Brian. So this is when the Doctor goes sort of full detective mode, trying to figure out what's happened to the world while planning to stop Brian achieve his goals. So this sort of section of the story really allows Paul McGann to shine, which I'm not going to spoil because it's a lot of fun and it's a great resolution to stopping Brian, with a great confrontation between the Doctor and Brian. But the final 5 minutes is where it's really tense and thrilling to listen to, because Brian has quite a dramatic ending which ties into The Night Before the Dead, the book release, which I'm not going to sort of go into how that links into the book, but it's only minor, so you don't need to have any context for the book because this is set before. So this release does end on a cliffhanger, so it does seem like this trilogy of stories do flow all into one another to create this one big story what ties into the grand narrative of the Time Lord Victorious. So moving on to characters now, the Doctor played by Paul McGann, another superb performance from the dashing hero to the rescue, showing the caring nature to the lovely quiet moments between him and the TARDIS, with the TARDIS missing all 700 wonders of the universe, which I guess is a fun way of hinting at that there's something wrong with the universe. With him being sort of very concerned and confused, you know, what's happened to this ocean planet and that's become this sort of desert world. So it's very interesting how he's sort of confused and he's trying to piece everything together, but he doesn't quite have all the answers, which is very fun. And it's great to see sort of Paul McGann take a very sort of detective role, much like he was in the sort of second story in Stranded, which was quite a lot of fun to see him sort of play a sort of a detective role within that. You know, he has some great sympathy moments between Sophie and Felicity, but really does shine within the final 10 minutes because Paul McGann does something very different with him being this sort of good old-fashioned cowboy to being this sort of flirty character, which I'm not going to spoil because obviously it sounded a little bit weird out of context, but once you've got the context of the story, it makes perfect sense, and Paul McGann just really excels at those moments. Next up we have a Brian View, played by Silius Carson, a magnificent performance, and I have to say, Brian the Ood absolutely steals the show. He's a real highlight and definitely the reason why I would recommend this story just to experience Brian, because he's a fantastic character. So yeah, as a character he's this very charming, manipulative character, you know, and he's very good at using his sort of innocent charm, you know, hiding behind the simple Ood front, but actually he's a very cunning and calculative character. And he has some damn right creepy moments, especially with Mr. Ball, you know, determined, you know, he's very determined to do his job. And you know, when he's sort of taunting Felicity at the start, is utterly chilling. He just has some really great chilling moments, and Brian the Ood, fantastic addition to this story, and definitely the highlight of the story for me, I feel, because he's just a very interesting and complex character, which I really do like. Felicity, played by Misha Malcolm, a very good performance, you know, this headstrong character, very protective of Sophie, with a great character explanation throughout the story and how she links with Brian. And they have a very interesting dynamic, which I'm not going to spoil, but it's a great character to sort of go along with Brian, so it's a very interesting character. So yeah, Felicity, very good character. So what are my concluding thoughts on He Kills Me, He Kills Me Not? Well, it's a fun little straightforward adventure, so it's an ideal for people who haven't experienced Big Finish but want to experience the events of Time Lord Victorious. So this story definitely does set up the adventure for the 8th Doctor, and I cannot wait to see how it continues. The music is fantastic, especially the opening score with Brian pursuing Sophie and Felicity. It's a wonderful score, I love that bit. You know, the world building is incredibly strong, you know, really setting up that there's something has gone wrong with the universe, which I really do like. You know, there is some great strong character moments within it, and you really do question, you know, what is happening to the universe. So it is definitely an interesting sort of story setting up that universal scale of Time Lord Victorious. Brian the Ood, like I've said, fantastic addition to this story, and like I said, a real highlight of this story for me, with that sort of manipulative nature, with some damn right creepy, unsettling moments, with him sort of mocking and taunting characters. It's fantastic, but has that very sly, devious charm to him. You know, and Paul McGann being a cowboy just makes the story worth it alone, really, I feel. But yeah, it's a nice, simple, you know, 50-minute adventure. I realise that this review hasn't been as sort of in-depth as they normally are, but I don't really want to spoil this story for people who want to check out this story, so I don't really want to spoil it. But I do think that this is a good little opening to the 8th Doctor's journey into Time Lord Victorious, because obviously this release does end on the cliffhanger, so it definitely does feel like it's setting up something truly epic. And it's just a fun little run around. If you enjoy sort of spaghetti western type audios or sort of stories, then you'll definitely enjoy this, because it definitely does have that sort of western feel to it. So yeah, I definitely did enjoy Doctor Who Time Lord Victorious, He Kills Me, He Kills Me Not. So my overall rating for this story, I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. I think that it's a good solid opening. If you haven't experienced Big Finish but you want to understand Time Lord Victorious, then I feel like this is a nice, straightforward, simple audio. You get a sort of a flavour of sort of events to come for the 8th Doctor, and it's definitely a very exciting audio. I'm definitely interested to see where the next two stories go and how it links into the grandest picture of the Time Lord Victorious. So thank you very much for watching this review. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I'll see you in my next Big Finish review, which will be the review of Doctor Who, The Crooked Man, part of my Halloween special audio review. So thank you very much for watching this review. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. So thank you very much, and goodbye.